What's going on, everybody? Shady's on Broadway here, and sorry I haven't made a video in a while. I've been pretty busy with work. I wanted to go down to part-time, but they told me I can't until the situation goes back to normal. A lot of people are out on leave right now, so expect less uploads for now, but hopefully in the future we'll have some more. So anyway, I have a really good game for you guys featuring, in my opinion, some of the best players in the world. We have Gilliant, Buckle Up Buckaroos, Takeshi, and personally I rank Takeshi as the #1 player in the world, and I rank Gilliant and Buckle within the top 10, top 15. So that's just my opinion of the games that I played with the many people that I played with. But without further ado, let's get right into this game. So I'm going to go ahead and start. So looking at this board, I thought for sure that the best options would be to go for something like 9-5-10 or 5-10-9 on the other side, or 6-4-3 or 8-10-3 potentially, or 6-4-11. 6-4-11, you could play a strong or weak sheep game. So that's pretty interesting there. There's a lot of things you can do with this board. In my opinion, there's not really a whole lot of really good spots, but it's a pretty balanced board in general. I didn't do any editing, so I'm going to go ahead and try my best to talk through the whole game. I did edit it earlier, but then the file corrupted, which is why it took so long. So I really didn't feel like editing the whole thing again. So that's where we're at. But this is definitely the longest game I've ever played. For sure, it was a really good one, though, and you guys will see that in a second. So Buckle is thinking about where to go, and we played voice chat for this game. Every single player was in voice chat. Unfortunately, not everybody wanted to be recorded, so we just went ahead and muted the audio for this game, but we have the video, so hopefully you guys enjoy it regardless and enjoy the commentary. So I think, honestly, that Buckle is thinking like, hey, the wood on this board is really bad, so I'm going to take the 6-4-3. I think that's what he ends up doing, but I think that's his thought process is, I want to get a decent wheat number, I want to get a decent ore number, and I want to get the best wood on the board. Those are the three really important resources, because if you notice, the brick is pretty plentiful on this board, making it less valuable than the wood, believe it or not. Even though there's more brick or more wood tiles, the brick is actually more plentiful, which means that it's less valuable. So Buckle takes the 6-4-3. I don't really think about my placement too much. I go with the 5-10-9 because I think that's the next best spot on the board. I think it's always important to think about your turn while other players are going, as opposed to just doing something else and then coming back and being like, oh, well, I'm going to do this because it's my turn now. So just something like that. So Takeshi, I believe, takes a little while here to decide. Ultimately, I think he takes the 10-9-5 on the left hand side. This game is pretty old. I think it's about a week old now, so I apologize. I don't remember the specific details about this game, but I remember a little bit. So I'll do my best to remember what we're going through here, and we shall see how it goes. So I don't think I'm going to be pausing too much because we did take a lot of time during each turn. So yeah, I think Takeshi takes the 10-9-5, pointing toward the brick port. We had a discussion on whether or not I would take the 2-9-4, and I thought about that for a while, because ultimately I was like, well, if I take 2-9-4, at least I have some ore. Like, I'll maybe get 2 ores throughout the whole game, and I'll get sheep and wheat, which is what I need. Because right now I'm going to be playing the road game. I'm playing wood and brick. I can trade Buckle for wood. I can give him brick for wood, because 5 and 9 on brick is an exceptional position to have in most cases, because I mean, in my opinion, the brick is not as good on this board. I kind of regret my decision. I think in retrospect I should have gone on the 4-11-6, because as good as the 5-10-9 is, brick is going to be on the same number, right? So if somebody else goes on the 5-10-9, then it's going to ultimately make the brick less valuable, because 2 players will have it every time a 5 is rolled. So when you have it on the same number, especially if they're both good numbers, it's usually not a good idea to do that, because then multiple players are going to be offering it to other players for more important resources, and there's going to be a struggle of like, oh, do I trade with X or do I trade with Y? So I think Takeshi thinks long and hard about his decision. He is in third position, which I think is good on this board. I think I would prefer going third over first, second, or last. Definitely gives you a good edge because none of the spots are too overpowered. There's no 5, 6, 9. There's no 8, 5, 9. Yeah, there's no 6, 5, 10 or 8, 5, 10. So it's, in general, it's a really balanced board. So we spend a good 20-30 minutes on initial placements here. And it's at 150% speed, so ultimately I think this game was by far one of the closest I've ever played. And you'll see what happens as far as the development cards and the craziness that ends up happening with that. I mean, it was completely insane as far as I'm concerned. So I think Takeshi's just deciding, like, hey, do I start off with the 4-11-6 or do I start off with the 10-9-5? He's trying to figure out what's going to be taken. In this game, it's fairly important to decide, like, hey, or not to decide, rather to predict, like, hey, where's my opponent going to go? Like, what benefits him the most so I can try to take advantage of the situation and see if I can basically take advantage of him. So I just realized that my face might be covering up the dice. We'll see what happens. Maybe I can move it on this side or like that. Yeah, we'll do that. So that way you guys can see the points and you can still see the board. Because I want you guys to be able to see the dice. So yeah, Takeshi takes 10-9-5. Definitely a strong pick. I just thought that the other 10-9-5 was better because there's no way that I'm not going to get a wheat number as my last pick because I'm going second, which means that Takeshi already has a wheat number, so it's unlikely he'll go for a second one. And there's 2 or 3 potential wheat spots for Gillian, and Gillian's only going to take one of them. It doesn't make sense for Gillian to take both. But that's just my opinion. He thinks long and hard about where to point his road. We were discussing, like, hey, he was like, oh, Buckle, can you give me wood to cut off Green Arrow? Because I think Green Arrow is going to go for the brick port. I really did want to go for the brick port, and you'll see why that brick port comes in clutch. But ultimately, I don't get it. It's rather unfortunate. So, are you guys agreeing with these placements so far? All players in this game are fairly experienced. I would like to say I'm fairly experienced, but I know the other 3 are very experienced players. And ultimately, they know what they're doing. So I think these picks are all pretty solid so far. I don't necessarily disagree with any of them. I think especially with the way this board is set up, it's completely balanced. There's no resource that's too plentiful and no resource that's missing other than ore. Typically when you're playing with a board like this with low ore, the games tend to last a lot longer as opposed to games where you get like 8 ore or 6 ore or 5 or 9 ore. Those games tend to go by a little faster. So Gillian decides to take the 8-4-3, and I think he ends up taking the 6-12-5 as his second pick, going toward the going toward the 11-12 3-for-1. I believe that's what he ends up doing. Yep. So Gillian's in a good spot because he has a 6 and an 8. He has a decent wood spot, a great brick spot. Well, 3 and 12 together are pretty decent for wood. And he's going to build toward the wheat port. Alright, so this turn for Takeshi takes quite some time. Here I am trying to convince Takeshi to go on the 8-10 because I want to take that 6-4-11 really bad. Buckle, on the other hand, wants to take the 8-10, so he tries to convince Takeshi, no, you should take the 4-6-11 because that makes Green Arrow, which is me, a really strong player. Ultimately, I think Buckle's correct in the sense that if I get 6-4-11, I definitely win the game because I'll have the best numbers on each individual resource other than I guess other than wheat. Because 10 wood is pretty good, 5 and 9 brick is godly, and then you have 6 sheep, which is really good, and 11 ore, which is the best ore number on the board. So I think that setup would be great. Takeshi doesn't want to do it though because he doesn't have any wood if he does that. And Buckle was like, well, you're not going to be getting much wood from the 10-8. The 10 will probably be blocked anyway. So Takeshi's like, yeah, but I need you to trade me wood if I'm going to do that. And I'm like, oh, well, I can't trade you wood because you're my competitor. And I know every time I trade with Takeshi, I lose to him. So we are kind of discussing that going into the game, like, hey Takeshi, what are your plans if you decide to take 6-4-11? Can you play road game? Can you play army game? Can you trade with me to supply me with brick? Can you trade me to supply me with sheep? There was a lot of discussion going on because right now Buckle is in a position to where I don't think he's going to get sheep unless he takes the 8-10 on the right side, because I'm pretty sure that these middle spots are going to get occupied by somebody. Gillian is done placing, so it's Takeshi's turn, which I think Takeshi's in a great position if he takes the 6-4-11, because it gives him pretty much every important resource. On this board, I don't think wood is super important because you have two players that are probably willing to trade it with you for another resource that you have a lot of. In Takeshi's case, he's going to have a lot of sheep if he takes the 6-4-11. And I think he has a lot of wheat too, which could prove to be beneficial because you could trade with Gillian, who I'm pretty sure is going to end up getting the wheat port this game. If Gillian gets the sheep port as well, he could be in a really dangerous position. But ultimately, the discussion goes on for quite some time here. And I think Takeshi ends up taking the 6-4-11 from what I recollect. Yeah, I think honestly it's a strong play. I don't disagree with doing anything, or I don't agree with doing anything else really. I honestly though, I really wanted to take the 6-4-11 for myself, because if you have a 6, 5, 9, and 10 as your setup, you can pretty much be guaranteed to win. The rule I like to say is if you can get 3 of the 4 good numbers, the 5, 9, 6, 8, you pretty much win every time. Most of the time though, you're going to end up being blocked on one of those 3 numbers, depending on what the resource is. If it's really good ore, then most of the time you'll be blocked on ore. But because of the way this board is set up, there's like very little ore at anyone's disposal. So it's a matter of like, hey, can we get ore, or do we have to convert for ore, or can we maybe roll some lucky rolls and get enough ore to build a city? Do we have to hold? Do we have to buy development cards and hope that we get either plenties or monopolies so we can convert? It's very complicated in my opinion, playing a low ore board, because there's a lot less obvious spots to go on. And this is like the second worst case scenario. The only worst case scenario would be if you had a 2 and a 12 on ore, which I don't know if it's possible by the way CU does their algorithm, but yeah. So there was a lot of discussion going on at this point. And Gillian, I think, put an emoji right there. Where do you think Gillian is gonna, or where do you think Takeshi is gonna go? I think I already said, but what do you think Takeshi should do is the better question. Gillian. I definitely don't think Takeshi is in a bad spot, because it's fairly unlikely that somebody takes 294, because everybody already has wheat and everybody can get sheep elsewhere. So I thought about doing the 810, but then I realized, well, if I get ahead, then that's going to put me in a position to where everybody's just going to block my 10 wood. And that's no good. If you're doubled up on a low number, like 10, you're not going to be getting enough resources in order to expand, which I think is pretty important for sure. There's another option of 3-8, which gives you a 3-for-1 port and a little bit of ore. But the problem with that for me is that I'm not going to be getting any wheat at all. And I think the wheat is going to be really important for sure. So, I'm not sure how much longer we have here. I'm going to see if I can go ahead and skip ahead on the recording. Sorry for the wait, guys. There we go. All right. And then, yeah, so that's what so he does end up taking that. and you'll see my placement here. Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped all the placements. So I ended up taking the 9-11-4 as my second pick, which I believe to be probably the best choice for me, considering what's left. I want to get a little bit of wheat to be able to build settlements and etc. So I think for sure that the 9-11-4 is my next best option. I thought for sure that Buckle would take 6-3-11, but in hindsight, I realized that he would have definitely taken the 8-10 because he has the 6 on wood, and it would give him 10 wood, so he would be able to build a settlement there and then expand to the 3-8. I didn't really think about that, so it's a waste of a road on my part in order to put my road down as opposed to up. But without further ado, let's get into the game. So we roll a 2. Nobody's on the 2. And Takeshi... Oh wait, what happened? I missed something here. Let's go back. Oh yeah, we rolled a 7. Okay, let me go back here. So Takeshi started with 3 cards. Sorry about that, guys. I probably should have edited the video, but it's whatever. So I think the first roll is a 7. Yep. And then we're discussing where to go. I think Buckle wants brick at this point. So I'm telling him... Well, actually, no. I'm not sure what Buckle wants. Maybe Buckle wants an ore. Because I know Takeshi started with an ore. I told him I started with a sheep and a wheat, which he doesn't need because he started with a wheat or he started with a sheep already. And since I have 2 sheep, it's very likely that if he grabs from me, he's going to get a sheep. So I think he decides to take from somebody else. He doesn't want to take from Gil. Or maybe he does want to take from Gil, actually, because Gil started with a road. Yeah, he takes from Gil. And Gil, I think, loses his brick or his wood here, which is pretty huge. We roll a 4, so we're going to get some wheat. Takeshi's turn to roll. Takeshi rolls a 6. R6 is blocked, but Buckle gets a wood. And Takeshi buys a development card. So that's what happens. I apologize, I skipped over it. We roll an 8. Buckle gets some more cards. So despite Buckle's weird position, Buckle's in a very good position to win this game because he has a good port with pretty good resource production. And you'll see the playstyle that Buckle has is fairly interesting as opposed to most players. It's not something you see all the time. But Buckle ends up buying a development card and passing. He converts his wood. We're going to roll the dice. We roll an 8. Our game is really slow in the beginning, but we'll pick up some speed later as we get more cards. It's just the rolls don't roll in our favor for the first few rounds here. We roll a 2, which doesn't help anybody, so I think Takeshi is thinking about playing his development card. If it's a knight, you definitely want to play it and move it off of you and put it somewhere else. I think he's talking about where he wants to put his knight, if he can trade. I always tell players the best thing that you can do with your knight is to extort a player. If you'd be like, hey, I have a knight, I'll put it on you if you don't give me a card, you're pretty much guaranteed to get a 1-for-1 deal of whatever you want. And then once you do that, you're able to basically steal a card from somebody else and get a card that you want. So it doesn't hurt to ever ask like, hey, I'll give you this if you give me that. Which is a fair trade in the end. So Takeshi is moving, he goes in the 5, and I tell him that Gil has some good cards. I'm not sure who he steals from. I know in this game, I basically flew under the radar for almost the entire game because nobody thought I was going to win. Simply because, as you can see my numbers, I don't have a 6 or an 8. So I'm pretty lacking in the production department. So wood for wheat. I think he extorted Buckle there. I believe that's what went down. I believe Takeshi was like, Buckle, give me a wood or I'll block you. And Buckle said, sure. I think that's what ended up happening here. We roll an 8, so we're going to get some sheep and some wheat. Roll a 9, so we get some brick and some sheep. 9 is really good for us. We're hoping that we roll a lot of 9s this game. Buckle wants to trade sheep. I already have plenty of sheep, but I offer a wheat, so I can 4-for-1 for a wood and see if I can get on that 6-3-11. My priority is to get on the 6-3-11 before any other player, simply because if anybody else gets on that 6-3-11, they're going to be in a very strong position. Roll a 4, so we get another wheat. I try to offer some deals here. I don't think anybody takes it though. I think I offer the reverse. I'm trying to 4-for-1, but I wonder if what I should do here is offer two sheep for 1 wheat or 2 wheat for 1 sheep. But I don't think I end up doing that. Buckle thinks about it for a while, but I think he ends up ultimately declining it. It's not in his best interest to accept that, so I end up just passing with 7 cards. Usually not a good idea, but I didn't really have any other options at that point, so I just dealt with the hand I had. And Takeshi wants to trade. Takeshi has wheat, Takeshi has sheep. Roll a 7, Gilliant loses his cards, and you'll see where the 7 plays in pretty big importance of this game. But it's going to be off of us. I'm trying to convince him where to go. I think Gil ends up blocking Buckle this time, though. I'm not sure if it goes on the 4 wheat. 4 wheat's a good block because it hurts me and Buckle, who both have 7 cards at this point. But it could also go on the 10 wood. I could see either, because I think Gilliant knows if I get wood, I'm going to be able to rapidly expand. So I'm not sure if it goes in the 10 wood or the 4 wheat here, but a lot of discussion goes on. A lot of discussion goes on. So, yeah, I mean, there's a couple of good blocks. He could go on the 5 brick and solo block Takeshi, which, as we know, Takeshi is the strongest player, so it would make sense to block him. I solo block Takeshi a lot, but I don't end up blocking Takeshi too much in this game. I think everybody gangs up on Buckle, and you'll see why. Alright, he goes on the 9 sheep and takes from me. And then he extorts a wood from Buckle again. So, Buckle's getting extorted left and right. But I think Buckle has to do that because it's in his best interest. We got ourselves another brick. We're really hoping we can roll a 7. Maybe steal a wood from Buckle, but Buckle goes in and buys another development card. We do end up rolling a 7, and I think I put it on Buckle here. Just so I can get his wood. Oh no, what? Really? There we go. I was like, what? Yeah, I miscounted his cards. I thought he had a wood, but he did not. And we 4-for-1 our wheat and we build a road. Because getting on that 6-3-11 is definitely in our best interest. Our game is a road game, especially because we're so far behind the development cards already. Once a player gets a few development cards, you really don't want to be buying development cards unless it's your last option. Simply because it's not in your best interest. We roll a 9, which is pretty nice. The 9s come in huge play for us because we're getting 2 cards, and I think we're the only player that gets 2 cards from a 9. So Buckle plays a knight. I wonder if Buckle needs brick here. Buckle needs brick to build roads. I'm not sure what his other card is though. Oh, it probably was a 4 because he has a wheat. Yeah, because I have a wheat, so he has a wheat because we share the same wheat number. So ultimately, I think Takeshi is a bigger threat right now because he has a road, and I point my mouse over the 9 because I'm like, well, he's probably going to go on the 9. There's a lot of extortion going on, as I already mentioned, simply because like it's a matter of like, oh, I want to go on you, I want to go on you, but I need cards in order to produce stuff. So Takeshi ends up getting a block, which I think is a good play. We roll a 10, which is really nice because we're going to be able to build a road on our turn, and since it's our turn next with 7 cards, there's nothing that can happen for us to lose our cards unless Buckle plays a Monopoly or a Knight, which I don't think he has any interest in playing a Knight right now. He's offering a sheep for a brick, and I end up taking it for some reason. I'm not sure why I took that. Oh, maybe he extorted me that time. I think he probably did. That makes sense. That's the only reason I feel like I would do that trade. But we go ahead and build a road. Oh yeah, I remember now. I specifically told him I would prefer a sheep if he was going to be robbing me, or robbing Takeshi. I told him if he got a sheep from him, I'll do a brick for sheep. So that way, maybe if you roll a 5 or a 9, I can 4-for-1 my sheep for a wood and build on the 6-3-11. Because at this point, there's nobody else that can get there in time. They simply don't have the production. A lot of 4s end up rolling this game, which is pretty cute. Which is just basically speeding it up, right? Because everybody shares the same wheat number, which is pretty unusual, like, because in most cases, you're not going to have a game where everybody shares the same exact resource on the same exact number. We get 7'd out, which really hurts us, but it doesn't matter. I don't think I bother extorting anybody this time. I robbed Takeshi, which I think is the best play. He's obviously upset about that, but I'm upset about being 7'd out because I get 7'd out a lot this game. So Takeshi rolls a 7. Usually it's not a good idea to block the person that goes after you because if they have a knight or a 7, they're going to be blocking you back out of revenge. Because that's how a lot of people play. So he puts it on the 10 and he steals a card from me. It doesn't make sense really to steal from me because Gillian has 7 cards, but I think he realizes that I'm a threat that if I get on the 6-11-3. But a 10 rolls, which really sucks because that would have been a wood. The wood is really important, obviously. We need to build on that 6-3-11 as soon as possible. We roll another 11, so Takeshi has multiple ores in hand, which is pretty huge because, and then we roll another 11, so he basically has a city. I 4 for 1 for wood because my wood is blocked. I have 2 wheat as insurance to cover in case somebody tries to rob from me. Takeshi rolls a 7 and 7's out, which is really important because I don't think he throws away his ore though. I'm not too sure if he tries to extort me here. Oh, I'm not sure if this was the turn. He's like, oh, you have a wood, I need a wood. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to be giving you my wood because I 4 for 1 for it. And I told him he had to pull for it, and he got a wheat from me. I think that's what ends up happening here. I believe I get robbed 4 times in this game. And everybody else gets robbed like over 10 times as far as what I remember from the statistics. But Takeshi's thinking about what to throw away because I believe he was either having a city in hand or he was close to having a city in hand. Which either way it really sucks that you have to throw away cards. But I had to do the same thing, so I'm not complaining by any means. Whenever your opponent has to discard, it's a really good day for you because that ends up putting a damper on their game. So he throws away several sheep. I think he goes back on the... Oh, he goes on the 4 wheat this time. Yeah, this was the turn where he tried to extort me and I told him no. I couldn't afford to give him my wood. He was like, oh, well, I'm moving it off to 10, so another 10 is going to roll. And I'm like, well, sorry, bro. I can't afford to do that at this point. So 8 rolls. He gets a sheep. He gets a wheat. He tries to offer sheep for wood. I tell Gillian that there's no way I'm going to give him wood unless it's for like 4 cards. And he offers multiple trades for wood because he's trying to settle on that wheat port. Because once he gets on that wheat port, he is in a golden position to win this game. Because he is on 8-4 wheat, which is equally as strong as 10-6 by Buckle. But the problem with Buckle's setup is he's not going to be doubled up on the number. So he's not, as you can see, Gillian's doubled up on the 4, but Buckle here can only get on the 10 one time. So Buckle rolls a 7. I try to convince him that Gillian's in the lead here because obviously he's a point up, and I really can't afford to have my wood taken. So I try to fight hard here, in a position to be like, well, I can't have you stealing from me, obviously. Takeshi gets robbed from though, which is nice. And then we roll a 10, which is great because we get a wood. I end up making a questionable trade here in a little while, but you'll see what I mean. We just need to get a sheep now to settle. And once we settle there, we'll be in a really good position because we'll have a lot of numbers locked down. The 6-3 is really important because it gives us a lot of options to expand. 10-3 on wood normally isn't the best setup, but it's enough production with my brick to be able to take the longest road, which I think is really important if you're playing a game here where you need the road in order to do well. So Takeshi thinking. If you haven't noticed, Takeshi takes a while on his turns, but that's just the mastermind going at work, thinking about what he has to do, what he has to plan. I typically end up doing better in games with timers, simply because I'm a fast-paced player, and if other players aren't thinking as much, it allows me to take an edge. So I believe we're coming to the turn where I make a very questionable trade. Because I believe another 4 is about to roll. 4 should roll here. Yep. And this is where everybody gets mad at me on my turn. You'll see what I do. I am known as the giver. That is my nickname in Catan. Why? Because I do bad trades and I give cards away. It's a tactic that I have that doesn't always work, but it can work, and I can't afford to give up my brick. But it's a tactic that I do in order to get what I need in order to settle our city up or buy devs. And it's just something I do. It's usually just to help somebody else, but it helps me a great deal. And you'll see the trade that I do here. So I believe Gillian has a sheep. Now, if you look at the cards I have, I need a sheep to settle. I need a sheep to settle. So I need something from Gillian, and he needs something from me. Look at Gillian's setup. Gillian has 3 and 12 on wood. Not so good. I have 10 on wood. Pretty good. The problem is that the 3 and the 12 are not rolling, so Gillian simply can't really do a whole lot. He needs to expand. Gillian needs to get on that 3 for 1, 12, 11. But he can't do that because the 12 and the 3 aren't rolling. So what do you think I end up giving him for his sheep? I don't waste any time. I roll the dice, roll a 6, Buckle gets a wood, and I say, hey guys, I'm doing a generous deal. Who wants to do this with me? And I go ahead and offer it. So this is something you should never do. You should always talk it out. I think Buckle's a scarier player at this point, so I take the trade with Gillian. Why do I think Buckle's a scarier player? Buckle already has a knight, and he has 2 development cards. Gillian has a settlement. I think it's much more valuable to have 2 development cards and a knight as opposed to 1 point. That is my opinion. And I don't think Gillian has a win condition. Gillian cannot take road this game, and Gillian simply cannot take army. He'll try, as you'll see later, but he can't take army from any other player. So his only win condition would be to buy multiple victory points. But as you can see, Buckle here, he has good wheat, good sheep, and decent ore, meaning that he should be able to easily buy development cards and put a damper in our game. Whereas Takeshi and me are going to be playing for road. Takeshi doesn't have any wood, but the problem is with Takeshi is that he's about to get on the brick port, and once he cities up to 5, 10, 9, once that 5 rolls, he's going to be getting 3 brick every roll, which is basically a road for free. So I know Takeshi doesn't look like he's in a good position to get road, but that was what I was thinking in the back of my mind. I took a lot of risks this game, and you'll see what ends up happening, but this was a very, very close game, and I thought it was a really good one. So Takeshi's sitting at 10 cards. Nobody really wants to trade with him. Gillian gives him a thumbs up. I give him a shrug. And yeah, so we roll a 10. We're going to get some wood here. And Takeshi gets some wheat. I think Takeshi's trying to city up. If you notice from earlier, we rolled a couple of 11s, and I don't think he threw away his ore. So I think he cities up on this turn. I'm not 100% sure. He does take his time to think about it, though, which is definitely important. You never want to rush through your trades or your conversions. So 4 grain for a ore. I think he does end up sitting up here because a lot of 10s did roll. And a lot of 4s because obviously I had a lot of wheat earlier. But the problem is Buckle can block that 6 all day, every day. All he has to do is move the robber there. And because it's shared by 3 players, you would think, oh, it's not going to be blocked too much, right? Well, the sad part is that, unfortunately, Buckle is going to be playing the army game, which means he's going to have control of where the robber goes. So it's going to end up being there a lot of the time. Now Takeshi cities up, and in my opinion, the player that cities up first wins. But you'll see what ends up happening. It's quite an unexpected turn of events. So it's Gillian's turn. Gillian tries his best to trade with us, but everybody's at 3 except Buckle, but I'm not sure. I believe Buckle has a monopoly, because I'll spoil this part for you guys right now. Every single development card ends up being played this game. Every single one. That's why this game takes so long, because instead of sitting up, people are buying development cards because the ore is so low that it's hard to save up. So Gillian successfully settles on the 11-12 because of the generous trade that I did with him. If you notice, if he had one less card, he wouldn't have been able to settle. So I greatly helped out Gillian, which may end up being my downfall, but I definitely think Gillian made a good choice there going toward that 11-12. Additionally, going toward the 8 sheep port would be nice because you have 6 on sheep and you have 8-4 on wheat. And you're doubled up on the 4 wheat, which means that you're going to be getting a bunch of wheat to convert. What's also scary is if Gillian gets on that 10-8 wheat, we could be in big trouble. So Buckle has a knight, and Takeshi kind of questioned him. Takeshi was like, well, Buckle, it's good on that spot. Why don't you leave it there? Obviously, Takeshi wants it there because Takeshi produces sheep elsewhere. Now, Buckle puts it on the 4, and I'm like, well, that's not a good play, Buckle. Why? Because Takeshi has a 10 wheat, which is better than the 4 wheat in my opinion, and Gillian has an 8 wheat, so there's really no point in putting it there. So I think Takeshi's dangerous. I decided to put it on the 11 ore, and I steal a brick from him, and I'm able to put down a road. I think putting down that road is going to be huge, simply because I'm going to be able to settle there in a couple of turns and get that 3-for-1 to be able to convert my brick and wood into what I need in order to build cities. So we have enough for a settlement, which is really nice. We'll go up to 4 points on our turn unless we're robbed. Gillian wants to trade once again. We don't really trade with Gillian too much other than that initial really good deal that we did with him. But I think Gillian thinks that he can get a good deal out of me. But I'm going to be trying to play a little bit more aggressive this game with my trades. But I don't think we end up doing a whole lot of trades. Ultimately, when you move up in the ranks of when you're playing with players, the better players tend to trade less. From my experience, and loose traders are the ones that are typically newer to the game or simply just want to move the game along, and trading definitely helps speed up the game because you're giving somebody something they don't have or something they don't want for something they do want, which, you know, it's supposed to help 2 players. Sometimes people accept bad trades. There is a certain tactic that I like to do, especially with newer players. Not necessarily to take advantage of them, because I always tell them straight up, like, hey, I'll do this trade with you even though it doesn't really help me if you can give me a card, or if you don't put the robber on me. So you're simply making yourself friends with that person, and you're making an alliance essentially, to the point where you're like, well, I don't want to put the robber on you, you don't put the robber on me, let's be friends. Unless I'm clearly winning, then you can start to target me. But other than that, let's go for blue, let's go for gray, let's go for gold. Let's target somebody else essentially. Let's not focus on the combat between us, and let's focus on the combat within the other players. So Buckle has a dev card here. I'm not sure if this is the turn where he plays it, but a lot of thinking going on right now. And as you move up in the ranks, typically the games take longer because there's a lot more thinking going on with a lot more thought process involved. Simply because, like, the way the games work, you want to try to take advantage of people as best as you can. If you're a good player, you normally won't do that with newer players unless you're just really desperate to win, but I don't like doing that. I like being honest with newer players. I like telling them what's good and what's bad. If somebody's offering a really bad deal, I tell them. So in this position, there's not really a whole lot going on yet. The game isn't getting too interesting, but it will in a second. I realized, like, hey, I can't win this game without road. I really need road to win, and I think I can get road, and I don't think anybody else can get road. I already said earlier that I think Takeshi has a decent shot at getting it, But Takeshi doesn't produce wood, so Takeshi's going to have a hard time. Takeshi makes a terrible offer of wood for brick, or brick for wood, which he's trying to convince Buckle to do. But Buckle doesn't necessarily need his help. Buckle has a port, and he's built on the 3-8, which he can convert. He's about to build on the 3 on the bottom. So Buckle doesn't need much. Gillian doesn't need much. Me and Takeshi are kind of stuck right now because we really need to trade with each other. We don't have a port. I mean, I have a 3-for-1, but it's not a really good 3-for-1 because my production is so low. My production's not the worst because I have a 6 now and a 3, but I don't have an 8, and that's pretty much the only number I'm missing. But the 8 rolls a decent amount this game, which, you know, 8's a really good number to have in most cases. Gillian shoots up to 5 points, which is pretty dangerous. Which, you know, going on that 8 wheat, he rolls an 8 here. He's going to be getting 2 wheat, which is a free card for him. That free card is really important. We're not getting a whole lot of cards, as you can see, which sucks, but there's not a whole lot we can do, right? Simply put, like, we can try to mess around, negotiate, do what we got to do, but it doesn't really end up mattering. Like, if we're not producing cards, we can't trade with other players. We roll yet again another 8, which it's just helping Gillian lead, you know? The game sometimes it can just go in somebody's favor and just dominate. So Gillian just starts racking up cards. Takeshi doesn't have a whole lot of cards either. Buckle's at 8 cards, and I'm really hoping he 7s out, because if he doesn't 7 out, Buckle's about to take the lead. It doesn't look like Buckle's going to win, but Buckle does extremely well. I won't spoil it, but Buckle does extremely well as a player, as his strategy, and as the dice rolls. We roll a 6 here, so that's a wood. We get a sheep. The problem is with 6 is that it doesn't really help us. It gives a card to every other player, including myself, but that doesn't help. What we really need is 9s. What we really need is 11s. And that's unfortunate because 9 and 11 are the only numbers that help us more than our opponents. So that's something else you have to consider when you play. What numbers benefit me, and what numbers benefit my opponents, and what numbers do I need to roll? Is there a way I can talk the dice into rolling what I need? Is there a way to convince my opponent to roll something? I believe that dice rolls can be predicted in a certain way. Obviously, it's always random, but some numbers roll more than others, right? So you can kind of expect numbers. You can kind of predict numbers that are going to roll. Right here, Takeshi, Buckle takes largest army, which puts him at 5. He also has a hidden dev card, which I believe to be a victory point or a knight. I'm not sure which one it is yet. I do know that Buckle ends up getting a lot of knights. That's not really a spoiler, as you can already see as 3, but Buckle really needs a city here, and Buckle takes his time in building cities, which typically is a bad play. You need to city up as soon as you can in order to rapidly produce cards. It's actually one of the top 3 tips from the creator of Catan, that you need to have cities early on. So he ends up passing. We roll a 7, and I'm going to be blocking Gillian here. I do not want Gillian's 8 to be producing any cards. And Takeshi kind of flies under the radar with me. We're both sitting at 4 points. He buys another development card, which is pretty dangerous. But Gillian here plays his knight, and he goes back on the 4 wheat. Now I don't understand the 4 wheat, honestly. If you're trying to hurt me, you go on my 9 brick. If you're trying to hurt Buckle, you go on the 6 wood. I understand the thought process of, well, let's hurt both players. Let's try to figure out what a player can be weakened by, and let's try to exploit that weakness. That's something you have to consider when you play these games. We're at 7 cards. We roll an 8, which sucks because I wanted that 8 blocked. We convert into an ore. We're trying to save up for a city. We desperately need cities. We roll an 11, which good for us, but the problem is it's giving ore to our opponents. Sheep is a bad card or is a great card. We're not getting the card we need. The only thing that helps us is 9 because that gives us 3 cards. And it's frustrating because if we don't roll these 9s, our opponents are going to be racking up cards faster than us. And as you can see, everybody except Takeshi has more cards than me. So spoiler alert, I don't end up buying a single development card this game. Not a good strategy? Maybe. Good strategy? You'll see. I don't think I'm in a position to buy development cards. I'm in a position to take road and build the rest of my points. So I think Takeshi's thinking about whether or not to play his development card, but he doesn't end up playing it. Reroll a 4, which sucks because that would have been a wheat, and that's one step closer to a city. I mean, it would have put us at 8 cards, so kind of unfortunate. But Gillian, I think, has a city in hand. Yep, he cities up to 8-4-3. I remember him saying, "Oh, that was a mistake. I should have citied up to 6-12-5." But I disagree. Like 8-4-3 is a really good choice. The problem, though, and I think the only reason Gillian said that is because he knows that the 8's going to be blocked a lot, right? So we roll a 9. That's fantastic. We need a lot of 9s. Now, if that 4 rolled earlier, we would have had a city in hand because we would have been able to convert our brick and our sheep to ore, and we would have had a +1 wheat. So, I mean, I understand why they put it on the 4. Because Buckle could potentially build cities. I could potentially build cities. You want to stop the players that are doing the most. Buckle buys 1 city here with all of his cards. And we roll a 4 again, which would have made us have a city. Really sucks, but we have to pass with 6 cards. Problem is we have a lot of ore. Now, usually having a lot of ore is a good thing. But we have to pass with a lot of ore, which means that somebody is probably going to steal it from us. Whether that may be a knight, a 7, or a monopoly. Those are the ways you get your cards stolen. What can I say? Like, these 7s, they're rolling a lot, and I'm not getting stolen from a lot, but I'm being blocked over half the time. The problem is that I share good spots. Buckle wants to block the 6 sheep. Takeshi wants to block the 4 wheat. Gillian wants to block the 10 wood. I really am in a bad spot. Like, if you look at it from my honest opinion, I don't really have a good way to city up here if I'm consistently being blocked. I would have had a city last turn if that 4 wasn't blocked, which would have been a huge lead for us. Because obviously we need to ramp up our production. We're not producing enough cards. Buckle has a city, Gillian has a city, Takeshi has a city. We're falling behind quickly. But I think the beauty in it is the ability that we're able to rack up a bunch of points without citying up. So you'll see what ends up happening with the rolls. Takeshi's at 13 cards. He's thinking about what card to play. At this point, I'm hoping Takeshi plays a knight, but he ends up buying a road, and I think he has enough to settle there on the 11. 11's not the best spot to settle on, but he does need to have a settlement there in order to produce more ore. And other than me blocking that 11, it's not a very likely scenario that somebody will block the 11. It's not a very good block. Gillian rolls a 7. I'm really hoping he doesn't rob me and that he robs Takeshi. And he does, because I'm at 4 points. He has 2 devs. I tell Gillian, you're crazy if you block me. Takeshi has 4 cards and 2 dev cards with 5 points, with a city. Buckle has 0 cards, so obviously you're not going to block Buckle. Buckle rolls a 7. I tell him, hey, Takeshi's the clear leader. Let's go for Takeshi. Or Gil, because Gil is at 6 with 1 dev, which could be a potential VP, and he's playing for the army. So maybe Gil's a bigger threat. We don't know. He goes for Gillian, which I think is a good play. We roll an 8, which is nice. We offer brick for sheep because we're trying to 3 for 1. I don't think anybody ends up taking this, though, and I think we are forced to pass again because I really don't feel like buying a development card with the amount of effort it takes for me. But I tell Buckle, I will give you a wheat later if you do this deal with me. And Buckle says sure. I don't think I end up giving him that wheat, not because I was deceiving him, but because there was never a good point where I could give him the wheat. And he ends up forgetting about it. So, sorry, Buckle, I do owe you a wheat. Maybe next game I'll give you one. But that was what ended up happening there. He's like, well, you need a wheat to city up, but you're in last place, so I think I can afford to help you. And that brick does end up helping Buckle a little bit because he wants to settle on that 3 for 1. We roll a 9, which is awesome because that gives us 4 cards. 4 cards is more than what anybody else is getting. And we roll a 5, so we're at 5 brick. Now, brick would be a nice card to Monopoly at this point. We roll a 6, which I really don't care about 6s, but I do want to get my card count lower, so I'm going to be converting into ore. We don't have an ore number, so we have to be producing our ore somehow. We get ourselves another sheep. Now, question. What do you think is the better option to city up? Do you think it's the 3, 6, 11? Do you think it's the 9, 3, 4? It's obviously not going to be the 9 on the right-hand side because that's too weak. But what do you think is the better option to city up? In my opinion, I believe the best choice to city up is a 9, 11, 4. Simply because if you watched my videos before, I always talk about how I think 9 is like the best number in the game. I've played games where 9 doesn't roll though, so it's always subjective. But I think 9 is one of the strongest numbers in the game. And the 6 is going to be blocked a lot if I city up on the 6. So it doesn't make too much sense to city up on 6. That's always something you have to consider. If I city this up, will it be blocked? Will it not be blocked? If I city up a lower producing spot, will that help me get more cards if they roll? Could be, but it's not going to be blocked, so you have to weigh the pros and cons. Will I produce more cards if it's unblocked? Sure. Will I produce no cards if it's blocked? Yeah, totally. You have to consider your options. Okay, this deal here is insane. Takeshi talks a lot with Buckle, and it's weird because Takeshi needs 3 wood. Takeshi is trying to settle on that 8-10 or the 10 3 for 1 in order to cut off Gilliant, and he needs 3 wood to do it. I don't have wood, and I don't think I would do it with Takeshi if I did. And I believe me and Takeshi only end up trading 1 more time throughout the rest of this game. 2 wood for 2 brick. We don't have wood. It's never a good idea to trade with Takeshi if you ever play with him. His trades are so calculated that he plays 20 moves ahead. He knows what's going to be rolled. He knows what you're going to be building. He knows how to cut you off. He's such a good player, and it's crazy that anybody considers trading with him. But I don't really think about it sometimes, and I only think about what's best for me as opposed to what's best for my opponent. That's another lesson that you can learn. What is my opponent needing to accomplish, and what am I doing by giving them a trade? A lot of people only think about what's in it for them if they accept a trade, but you always have to think about what's in it for my opponent. So, yeah, it's interesting, I'll say that much. And as you notice, Takeshi's taking the longest out of all of us, but he has to think about it, right? It makes sense. Does he have a city here? Man, I have to go to the dentist tomorrow. I really hate the dentist. Takeshi buys another dev trying to compete for army. Takeshi repeatedly says, I have no win condition, I have no win condition. And he's right, because it's going to be really hard for him to win, but he ends up getting a decent number of knights as well, so you'll see if he ends up taking the army. It's not going to be an easy task, as you're going to need minimum 3 more knights to take the army from Buckle. And typically when you play, first to 5 knights has it on lockdown in a 4-player game, if all the players are buying devs. I'm not buying devs, so I told myself, like, what's the point of me buying a dev? Maybe I'll get a victory point. If I had known which card was going to be a victory point, I probably would have bought one, because getting those essential victory points are huge in order to be able to win the game, because you need those points obviously to get to 10, but also if you can't build somewhere or your settlement spots are not ideal, you have a difficult time placing somewhere, Getting victory points can be huge. The problem is that nobody's in a really good position to play ore wheat sheep. Buckle has a 3 ore, an 8 sheep, and a 4 wheat. 4 wheat and 3 ore are pretty bad for ore wheat sheep. In most cases, you need a 5, 9, 6, 8 with all 3 of the resources, but I've seen players pull it off. One of my favorite players, Nekden, also known as Kenneth, plays ore wheat sheep a lot, and he's a pretty good player, so maybe I'll play a game with him tonight and upload that as well, just as a reward for you guys. I'm off the next 2 days. I have plans, but I should have enough time to record a couple videos just as a reward, so hopefully you guys enjoy that. But yeah, Takeshi taking a while yet again. Yeah, definitely will edit the next video. Like I said, the file crashed, so I really didn't feel like doing the whole thing all over again. So I apologize for any inconvenience that causes you guys, because I understand this is gonna be a long video. We're already at the 56-minute mark, so I know it's not people's preferred thing to watch a long game, but I think there's a lot to learn out of this game simply because of the skill level of the players that are playing. Yeah, I'm pretty sure Takeshi's sitting on a monopoly. Actually, I'm not sure if Gil and Buckle are the ones with monopolies. No, he plays a knight. My apologies. Where does he put it though? 8 wheat? Eight wheat's a good spot. Yeah, 6 wood. I agree with 6 wood. Buckle's in a good spot. I mean, Gillian's also in a good spot, but what I keep telling Takeshi, and what I have to tell you guys as my viewers, is you have to consider that the road and the army are not production. They don't produce anything. So a player with army and road, or road, versus a player with clean points. We call those clean points. What are clean points? Clean points are points that are not road, not army, and not victory points. If a player has equal clean points or 1 less clean point than a player with army or road, you're typically beating that player. Unless the exception is if that player is at 8 and the other player is at 9, or if one player is at 7 and the other player is at 8. But in this position, I would consider Gillian winning over Buckle. And I would even consider Takeshi winning over Buckle at this point in the game. We are at 8 cards, so it's our turn to roll next. We have to not roll a 7. We get 7'd out a lot in this game, which ends up being our downfall, but you'll see, you'll be surprised what happens. Buckle ends up trading 2 wood for a wheat, trying to keep his army. We don't know what Gillian has. We don't know what Takeshi has. Takeshi could have 2 knights. We roll a 3, which is huge, huge for Buckle, because that's 3 ore. We are deciding to connect here. Why do we connect? We want to get that road, and we want to make sure nobody cuts us off. Buckle could easily build 2 roads in between and completely ruin our game. I've seen players do that before, and it would be in his best interest to do that. So definitely something to consider. Always consider what your opponents are going to do and if they can cut you off. Takeshi throws away 4 sheep. We converted our cards to an ore. I tell Takeshi, Buckle has 3 ore. You need to steal from him. And I don't know if he agrees with me. But if a player ever gets 3 ore in their hand and you have the opportunity to steal, I say you go for them. But he ends up going for Gil. Maybe that's a good play, but with 3 ore in your hand, you're a bigger threat, I think. But maybe he was fishing for wheat. I have no idea. I'm not too sure if there was any bricks on the board or in hand, but yeah. Gil's turn to play. Gil rolls a 7 again. I think Gil needs ore right now, really bad, because he wants to city up that 6-5-12. I know Gil has some wheat, so. And he's not playing his card. He puts it on the 4 wheat. I do not like that. I need that 4 wheat to produce my cities. if this 4 is blocked, which it is a lot of the game, I have no way to be able to produce wheat. I have to rely on my 3-for-1 port, which means I have to rely on the number 9, which means it's really risky. I honestly, number 9. It's funny because me and my sister agree that number 9 is really good in this game. I like it more than 5, even though it's the same producing. And sometimes I even prefer it over the 6 and the 8. Not in terms of production, but in terms of appeal. Because for some reason I tend to roll it a lot. But I have played games where we roll 0-9, so you see everything when you play a bunch of games of Catan. We roll a 12, Gillian gets more wood. That's really huge because Gillian is about to build on that 8-10. If Gillian gets that 8-10, he's going to have the game on lockdown. So, what do we do? Oh, Arrow, do you have wood? Well, Takeshi, I have 2 wood. What can you give me? Well, Arrow, I have a generous trade for you. I believe this is the turn, by the way. I apologize if this is not the turn. But I believe this is the turn where Takeshi tries to bargain with me. Yep, this is the turn. So he gives me that. And I'm like, oh snap, that is awesome. I will do that, Takeshi. And Gillian is blowing fumes right now because obviously that sucks for him. And he gets cut off. That sucks for Gil. Now, mistake to do that with Takeshi? Maybe. But I think if Gil got that 8-10, he was guaranteed to win the game by a landslide. Because he would be producing multiple cards on that 8. He would have access to a 10 wheat, a 4 wheat, and an 8 wheat with multiple buildings on each one. That is too dangerous to be left alive. So I thought Takeshi was the weaker player going into this. But, yeah. Buckle gets robbed from, because Buckle still has ore. We roll a 2, which Takeshi gets an ore. Now, I told Takeshi, if I roll a 7 on my turn, I'm stealing from you. He's like, well, why? And I'm like, well, you have an ore. Always count what your cards are being passed out. And we do end up rolling a 6, so that doesn't help us. We have to pass, yeah. But always count your cards, because if one player has 1 card and you know what it is, you can definitely try to steal it from them. And you always have to play your odds. If you see something, oh, okay, that's a really good roll. If you see something being rolled and you roll a 7 and you're like, well, I really need that card, but somebody has a couple of them and somebody has a lot of them, you're like, well, I want to steal from the player that has a lot of that card simply because I'm going to be able to take what they have and they're not going to be able to do anything about it. They're not going to have enough cards in their hand to act as a defense, act as a block. And I say the word block as in you have, let's say you have 3 ore, 2 wheat, and 5 sheep. The sheep act as your line of defense from other players robbing you. They can act as a defense, making a player trying to monopoly sheep instead of your ore and wheat. They can act as a line of defense from people grabbing you from 7s. They can act as a line of defense from people grabbing it with knights. Those are the 3 forms of defense right there. So I think that's something I'll probably make a video on, but it's something to consider, definitely, for sure. So we have a bunch of cards. We can build a city if we don't 7 out, which is really important. Obviously, we need to city up, and I think if we city up, we have a good shot at winning. Everybody's trying to convince me to build roads at this point. They're like, well, Arrow, if you do not build roads, Takeshi will take along this road and win the game. Now, he monos for sheep. And I think he got 8 sheep there or something like that. Pretty good turn for Gil. I'm really happy he did not mono ore. I think if we look at it, monoing ore might have been a better choice. I'm not too sure if anybody else had ore. I know Takeshi had 1 ore. I had 3, but maybe Gil doesn't need that at that point. But Gil decides to buy some development cards. He is trying to lock down that army from Buckle. And I don't know if you guys know Gillian at all, but he has the worst luck when it comes to drawing knights. You'll see what he ends up drawing. But Buckle rolls a 7. I beg Buckle not to block me, because if you look at my hand, with me losing all those sheep, I have a city. I tell him he has to block Gil. Gil could be at 8. 6 clean points plus 2 VPs maybe. Buckle ends up buying another dev. Now, I will not spoil this, or actually I will spoil this part for you. Buckle has 3 victory points in his hand right now. He doesn't tell us this, but we are able to figure it out as the game progresses. So Buckle's at 9. Well, actually, he might be at 2 victory points plus a Monopoly or something like that, because 1 Monopoly got played, and I think Buckle has the other one. And I think he gets the last victory point later, but Buckle does end up getting 3 victory points in his hand for the whole game. We roll a 4, which is nice. And now, I did say that sitting up the 3, 6, 11 was a bad choice, but the reason why I did it is because my 4 is getting blocked a lot. And I thought, well, I think the 6 is a better block, but apparently nobody else thinks so. So let's go for a city that is not likely to get blocked. And I think that's why we end up doing the 6, 3, 11. Additionally, we want to get more wood. We need wood to buy roads. If we get roads, we have a good shot at being able to build. So Takeshi could potentially steal road here. I know Takeshi ends up buying a road builder this game. I'm not sure when he gets it, but I think he holds on to it for a while. And that's the thing too. You always have to consider how many roads do I have versus how many roads do I need. If I build roads, my opponents are going to want to build roads. If I don't build roads, my opponents are less likely to want to build roads. Those 2 points are a really good incentive to build roads. But the problem is it puts you in a good position, encourages people to steal from you. So Takeshi is not in a bad spot. He's about to city up, I think, or buy another dev. Yep, he buys another dev. Now, I don't buy any devs this game, but there are 5 victory points in the deck. And as you can see, there are 8 cards between the 3 players. Somebody has victory points. Everybody denies having them, but somebody has to. I believe Buckle has some because Buckle hasn't been playing his cards. Takeshi just drew a couple of them, so his could be anything. You always want to count the cards. It is public knowledge, whatever cards are played, that you leave the cards in front of you and you can count them freely. If you see a lot of knights being played, you have to be careful. The Monopoly card is by far the strongest development card in the game, and it can be a huge player in whether or not you can win or lose. Because in most cases, a good Monopoly card will let you steal will let you gain 2 points. Will let you steal enough cards so that you can gain 2 points. And I think that is quite critical. Gillian, oh, Takeshi plays a knight. That's what he was thinking about. So I tell him Buckle's potentially at 9. I think he puts it on Buckle this time. Maybe back on the 4. Yeah. I mean, Takeshi in his defense has to think here. Like, oh yeah, he goes on the 4. I always tell him that 4 is not a good block. He blocks himself. Quite interesting. But he thinks that Gillian is at 8 right now. And Buckle convinces them that he doesn't have victory points. Which, I don't know if he's lying because he could have the victory points later, but all I know is that he ends up getting a lot of victory points. And none of these players lie, so that's why we all trust each other when we say, oh, I don't have victory points. But I'm not too sure if the reason they say that is because the last cards of the deck end up being victory points, or if they're actually just bluffing pretty well. Gillian gets a 3rd knight, so he needs 1 more to take from Buckle. And I tell Buckle, if you lose that army, Buckle, we are out of this game and Gillian will win. We need you to keep that army. So that's what I try to convince him to do here. And it's a good idea, because if players are buying development cards, odds are they're not getting any more points than they already have. If somebody has army and somebody else is competing for army, they have to keep buying the army cards in order to keep that, or in order to overachieve the other player, or overcome the other player rather. And he steals from Buckle because Buckle is his army competitor. Nobody is going to be my road competitor yet. So Takeshi's road right here is huge. It doesn't look like it's a big deal, but it's huge. I really like that road. Because you can loop around, you can steal along this road potentially, you can go all the way around here. Gillian cuts me off, which hurts because I wanted to go on that 912 because that would produce more cards for me. Buckle thankfully has a knight, which stops Gil from getting army. I don't necessarily agree with Gillian's game plan of buying knights when Buckle has already had it already on lockdown, but I think Gillian was just trying to make a last-ditch effort here. Takeshi's also on 3 knights, so he has to take from Takeshi. And Buckle buys a dev. Pretty sure that dev is a victory point. We are approaching the end game, ladies and gentlemen. And I hope you guys are enjoying this. If you are, be sure to hit that like and comment something down below. It helps the algorithm. Helps me, helps people find the channel. I might end up doing a thumbnail for this video because this game, in my opinion, was super special. So I want to give it a little bit of extra attention, even though I didn't edit it down. So look how many brick we have. Like, my goodness. I don't even bother trying to offer it, but I just connect my roads. Everybody was yelling at me to do that, and I'm like, well, I could build one more road, but I don't think I want to do that. Well, what do I end up doing here? Oh, that makes sense. Yeah. Convert to wheat. Why do I convert to wheat? Because I'm pretty sure that 4 is going to be blocked. Plays a knight. Takeshi at 4 knights with a victory point, I'm pretty sure. Yep, and the 4 gets blocked just like I thought. Now, if you notice, I'm getting blocked consistently, but nobody's stealing from me. That's a really good thing. I'm able to successfully talk my way out of being blocked. And I'm not even being extorted. I'm like saying, I'm not in a good position. I need cities. I don't produce ore. You're blocking my wheat. What can I do? So I'm able to sneak. And nobody's able to do anything about it. So roll an 8. That sucks, but whatever. Gil gets 3 wheat. We end up getting a lot of bricks this game. A lot of bricks. So Gil could be at 8. He could be. I'm not too sure. I can't recall if Gil has 2 monopolies. I know one was played on cheap, if you're keeping track. And I know he does end up getting a year of plenty later in the game. But at this point, I think Buckle's at 9 points. So we 7 out. Huge unfortunateness for us. That's not even a word, but you know what I mean. It sucks, basically, is what I'm trying to say. Unfortunateness is not a word, I don't think. Maybe it is, I have no idea. But today has been a long day for me. So I'm just doing my best here as we record. And this is a long game, so I apologize. I really should have edited it, but edited it. You know what I mean. But yeah. Buckle, what are you gonna do here, man? You're at 3 devs. You have 4 knights. Can we play another knight to stop Takeshi from taking the army? That would be really cool, because if Takeshi takes that army, he's about to win. He has a settlement spot. He has 6 points. He has a victory point. He has a bunch of things going for him. But we block Gil instead, because we love to block Gil. Yay! And we play that year of plenty. And we buy another dev. And now he's at 3 victory points, I'm pretty sure. Well, I think he gets 1 more knight, and he gets 3 victory points, so yeah. I know Buckle doesn't know this, but I'm pretty sure all the victory points are gone. So, yeah, we can see there are 5 cards left. I think one of those is a road builder, one is a year of plenty, a couple knights are still left. So row 8, good block. Row 8, great block. Buckle's getting more and more cards. Ah, man. We just need 2 cities. But the problem is it takes us a while to get cities. And if Gil did not block us there in the 12-9, we might have been able to build there for an extra point. Which is why those 2-for-1 ports come in so handy. And in clutch. Second mono played on sheep. He knows that Buckle has 3 devs, which could be VPs. So he just plays his best and goes for what he has, which I agree with at that point. You had to play your mono in order to stop Buckle from winning. Because Buckle, I think, had like 5 sheep or something like that. Something a lot. 11 is rolled. We get a bunch of sheep back, which is nice, but we don't really need sheep. We are just praying that we roll some 9s. Roll a 3. Buy ourselves a settlement on the 11-5 and convert. We are at 9 points. Do you think we can pull it off? It's going to be very close. We roll a 7. Takeshi's turn. We do know Takeshi has 1 victory point. Does he have a knight in order to steal the army from Buckle? I think if you had one, you would play it. But maybe he wanted to roll to see if he rolled a 7 first. And maybe he just wants to keep it on the 8 because he doesn't know if Gil is at 9 or if Buckle's at 9. What Takeshi knows is I have 1 victory point. There's 4 victory points in the deck. Who has the victory points? Is it Buckle? Is it Gil? It's not Green Arrow because Green Arrow has 0 cards. Yay! Yeah. So 6-4-11 is citied up on. Takeshi's at 8 points. And 8 gets rolled. Gil gets 3 wheat. He buys some dev cards. I don't know about that, Gil. I think you should have citied up that 6-5-12 instead of buying multiple devs. But maybe he thinks he can still get the army back. I'm not too sure what his thought process is there. But I think he should have just built to 10 points as opposed to buying devs. But I play a lot of games where I buy devs. I play a lot of games where I don't buy devs. I don't think it's a bad play to buy devs. It just depends on your position. Depends if you can rack up points. Ultimately, devs are risky because you need specific ones at specific points in the game. You need a road builder early on. You need victory points later on. You need knights in the mid game. You need Year of Plenty's never because Year of Plenty sucks. You need monopolies because they're the best card ever. Yeah, so Monopoly sucks in cities and knights though. Gil is thinking about what to do here. I feel sorry for Gil. Gil, I think, ends up buying the most dev cards, and he does not have army. Gets up to 4 knights. Now, who do you block? Takeshi or Buckle? Buckle has 6 cards. Takeshi has 2 cards. Takeshi could be at 2 VPs. Buckle could be at 3 VPs. You don't know who has the VPs. All Gil knows is that I have 1 VP. Like I keep saying, there's 4 VPs and there's 1 dev card left. That 1 dev card could be a VP, which I think is what he's trying to fish for, because he knows that he needs knights. He knows he needs VPs. But I'm pretty sure that Buckle has 1 knight and 3 VPs, meaning that there's no possible way that he can do that. Now, questionable block on that 10, I think. Very questionable block. Because I think the 6 rolls in the second year. No, knight gets played first. Securing the army, because nobody can get army at that point. You need 6 knights. And Gil does not have 6 knights. I am pretty sure that Takeshi has a road builder and a victory point. Gil has a year of plenty, a victory point, and a road builder. And Buckle has 3 victory points. And the last card in the deck is a knight. I am 100%. Well, not 100%, but I am like 95% sure that's the case. According to my calculations of what's been drawn, how they're playing it, their play style. It really all depends on who you're playing with if you can figure them out. The more you play with somebody, the more you tend to figure out how they play. Steals from Takeshi. Rolls a 12. Really nice for Gil. So I'm at 9. Can I pull a win here? All I need is 1 city and nobody is robbing me, which is fantastic. Buckle buys the last card of the deck and we roll a 6. I convert. I need ore. I need wheat. I pass. I think about what to do here, I think. I was like, oh, can I buy a dev? And then I realized the dev card's gone. So I think that's what I was thinking about. Like, oh, maybe there's a victory point left and I can win. But I think I just realized all the devs were gone. So Takeshi rolls a 7. Where does Takeshi want to place that robber? It's questionable. Because Buckle could be at 9. Gillian could be at 9. We don't know who has the victory points. Takeshi steals from Buckle. Good play, good play. And he blocks the 6, which I think is a good block. Gillian's turn to play. We roll a 6, which is a really good block because Buckle doesn't get any cards. All Buckle needs is a city to win. And I keep trying to tell them that. Because Gillian, I don't know about the other two, but I know Gillian for a fact never lies about his devs. I'm pretty sure the other two are pretty honest too, but Gillian I trust the most out of everybody, including myself. Out of the 4 of us, I trust Gillian the most. Now, Buckle steals my ore. And at this point, I was fuming. I'm like, Buckle, why would you steal from me? I need that ore. And yeah, I think he made a good call. Because if he didn't steal from me there, I might have been able to city on my turn and win the game. So, I 7 out. I 7 out. And not only do I lose my ore, I 7 out. I get my ore back, and I get another ore. Or no, do I go for a wheat? Oh no, I pass. Yeah, I use the sheep as a shield. Shield, sheep, sheep shield. I'm at 10 cards. I can win. All I need to do is roll a 9, and I win the game. I am this close. I am so close to winning. All I need to do is roll a 9. Can we roll the 9? We 7'd out, which means that we're 1 card short from the city. But nobody's taking the road, or do they? Like, who do you think has the potential to take road at this point? Because I'll tell you that much, it's not going to be Buckle. Oh my goodness. It's not going to be Buckle. We know that there's 2 road builder cards that have not been played yet. I believe Gil has one, and I believe Takeshi has one. I believe Gil has the... Gil has a year plenty and a road builder. Takeshi has a victory point and a road builder. Gil has a victory point and Buckle has 3 VPs. I think I already said that, but that is the current standing right now. That is the current development cards of everybody. So Takeshi has to think about what to do here. Does Takeshi play his road builder and try to steal my road now? Is there any way he can win with that? At this point, everybody's not trading because there's no way you're going to help somebody who's in the lead. Now, if Buckle didn't steal that ore, and if I didn't 7 out, I thought for sure that I could have won in a couple turns. So it's prolonging it. So yeah, Takeshi has to think. Like, he has a lot of options. Can he take the road? does he have to, because he can't buy devs, can he settle and city up and build to 10? Because what I should have done instead of converting to ore is I should have built 2 roads toward that 912. I should have been contesting with Gil for that spot. I 7 out for the second time in a row. I 7 out for the second time in a row. That sucks. That is the worst case scenario for me. And it's going to be moving somewhere where I don't want it to be moved. It goes on the 4, and he steals from Buckle. That stops me from getting wheat, which stops me from sitting up. These turns are not going well for me. I'm not losing cards, but they're not going well. And Gilliant locks my only chance at preserving my road. A 10 gets rolled. I think Gilliant had to do that to play defensive, because I could have, if I didn't 7 out, I could have potentially built up there. I roll a 9, which would have been really nice instead of the 7s. But I know Takeshi has the potential to steal the road, but I get greedy. I convert. I think I convert. Or do I build roads here? Everybody's telling me to build roads, I believe. But I need to convert as well. But I think Buckle says Takeshi has a road builder because Gil doesn't have one, so I need to play it safe and build roads. Roll a 5, we get some brick. And Takeshi's at 14 cards plus a road builder. So he takes his time. But you can probably figure out what happens here. There's not really a whole lot we can do about it. He just has to think what he's doing. And I believe this is the end game turn here where Takeshi wins. So I just spoiled it for you guys, but it's a very clean win by him. If I wasn't cut off on the roads over there, I might have been able to pull something off. He plays road builder, puts down 2 roads. And settles for the win. So he doesn't even take the longest road, I apologize, but he was able to build roads in order to build to the spot. I thought he took the longest road. But I hope you guys enjoyed that game. That was a really intense game. Stay tuned for more Catan content, and I'll check you guys out in the future. See you later.